Have you ever wondered in how many other people's lives are you the villain? This popped into my head because I was scrolling on Instagram and I came across some posts that were talking about like motivational, personal development, self improvement kind of things, where it's like, just because you place a boundary and cut off a person, it doesn't mean you want ill will on them. It just means they can't eat at your table, that kind of stuff. And it got me thinking. I can look at those posts and I can apply to myself where I'm like, okay, like my line of thinking is what the post says basically. But then I started thinking like in every situation, there are three sides to the story: yours, the other person's, and then the absolute truth. So while I'm thinking about it from my perspective, like, yeah, that's what I did. I placed a boundary, or I don't need this toxic person in my life. I don't need this person making bad choices and, influencing me. That's how I'm thinking. But the same could be said about the other party, in which case to them, they're thinking that I'm the bad guy, that I'm the one who's doing toxic things, that I'm the one making questionable decisions in their lives and this and that. And I just kind of started wondering like how many people am I the bad guy for? Now, I like to pride myself on my self-awareness, and as long as I'm not like emotionally worked up, I think I do a pretty good job at looking at situations as objectively as possible. Obviously, it helps to have someone to discuss things with so that they can like put me in line, check me, like, hey, you're only thinking of that because of this, kind of call me out in a sense, which of course that's what my husband does. He is so great at it. But I do think I am pretty good at looking at situations objectively at times. So when I came across these posts on Instagram, I started thinking like, okay, I know my side of whatever situation. I can see how it applies for me. And I started trying to like imagine myself in the other person's shoes and like, how does it apply to their perspective about me? And I'm not going to lie, objectively, in these situations I've been thinking about, I do think I was in the quote unquote right. I do think objectively, I may not be 100% in the right. Obviously, I call myself out on things that I've done where I'm like, that was the wrong move. That was a little petty. That was a little dramatic, emotional, whatever. But I do think for my particular situations, I feel like more or less I am closer to the objective truth of the situation. But I do find this line of thinking interesting because I feel like it helps explain the other party's actions at times. One of the things that Nico and I do is we kind of analyze people's behaviors, like in the situations we've been dealing with. And I feel like I deserve, I don't know, an associate's degree at this point in freaking psychology because we have really been dissecting behavior, intent, causes. Frankly, the human mind is very fascinating. There's so many conditions like narcissism. Okay, little side note. My one issue with the self-improvement niche community, personal development, like all of that stuff, my one issue with this topic is how buzzwordy things get. These days on social media, you hear the words like narcissism, red flag, toxic, boundaries, therapy. Like you hear those words thrown around like in every other sentence and it just dilutes the meaning of it. But there are times where it is what it is. Like that is the topic at hand. So like narcissism, you see people throw around that word left and right these days. They don't get along with somebody, all of a sudden that person's narcissistic. Now, having come to terms with someone in my life I truly believe is narcissistic, Now I can see, like, oh, wow, that is true narcissism. These traits, these actions, these potential influences, causes, like, that's insane. Which now also then leads me to like see situations posted online. And I'm like, that's not really narcissism. That's just you just not getting your way or you not agreeing with the person or whatever. I stray. Trying to put myself into the other person's shoes and thinking about how they are perceiving the situation, I feel like it really does open your eyes and gives you more information on the situation. Honestly, it helps solidify whether or not you're right or wrong. Because, like I said, for me, I truly believe objectively, and I've discussed this with other people, they also agree. I can't speak for them if they're being objective or not, or if they are biased or influenced by emotions, but they also agree, or they have said it first, where it's like we collectively agree that our side is closest to the objective truth as possible. It kind of just helps, I don't want to say justify, but it almost gives evidence to that belief. So when I try to put myself in the other person's shoes and it's like, okay, if their story is the one that is closer to the objective truth, I try to then analyze my actions. Like from their point of view, what did my actions look like, come off as? Did I actually do something wrong? Could I have done something better? I try to analyze it. Maybe it's a potential misunderstanding that could be avoided in the future with someone else. Or maybe it's just an unavoidable situation and I reacted in a sensible way. You know, like you won't really know those things until you analyze it and really look at it when you're calm and not in an emotional state and you can actually look at it objectively. So when I look back on my response, my actions, at least for the specific situations I'm thinking about, I feel like I kind of feel justified. I feel like, okay, like I had a reasonable response based on the situation I was in, the information I was given. My response was valid. And frankly, I feel justified. And in feeling justified, I almost feel validated that they were the one truly in the wrong, that they were the true villain. But of course, this is all just my perspective, my side of the story. And like I said, there are always three sides to the story. So another thought I had when I came across these posts, I started thinking about like, okay, what about the other person's perspective? You know what I thought of? I thought of the Disney villain movies. And I'm talking about like Maleficent. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, but it's like a great example of what I'm thinking about. Like in this, I love the movie Maleficent. Maleficent explains how she became the bad guy. Maleficent is known as the bad guy, the villain in Sleeping Beauty. But the movie is her story, is her side of the story that explains what shaped her and how she came to be evil. That's actually a really good example of three sides to the story. And that line of thinking then led me down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, based off of influences, childhood, what could have shaped this and that, which could have led to this behavior, which could have led to this way of thinking, which ultimately doesn't justify a person's actions in like today, like whatever happened to you 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40, 50, 60 years ago at birth. It doesn't justify your actions in present day because you had all of that time in the past to figure out your shit and get over it, learn to move on. But it does help, I guess, explain behavior. And I feel like that's one of the most difficult things in a situation where there's like a conflict. It's the explanation of someone's actions that is so difficult to like see. At least that's how it is in my situation.